I am so excited to announce that iDRIVEACLASSIC is now sponsored by Adrian Flux, one of the UK's leading classic car insurers. If you're looking for classic car insurance, I've popped a link to Adrian Flux in the description box below.
Hi guys, it's Steph from iDRIVEACLASSIC. It's blowing a gale out there, so we're shooting the intro in here today. And we're looking at this fantastic Honda Acty. It's the first generation and it's a model from the pre-1982 facelift. It's something that wasn't on my dream car list, but when I got offered, I had to, well, I couldn't say no, could I? It's really fun. I'm very excited to show you it today. It's something which those of you that watched the Bedford Bambi video and really enjoyed it, I think this will appeal to you too. So I'm going to kick off with a tour around the outside, and don't worry, I'm going to show you in the cab as well at the back. So let's kick it off.
Today we're out in a Honda TN-Acty, which was a microvan Kai truck style vehicle created for the Japanese domestic market. It was designed to comply with the Japanese 1975 regulations, whereby taxation classes changed and vehicles over a certain dimension with a certain engine size no longer fitted the bill. The Acty came to market in July 1977 and replaced the TN-36 and TN-360. It was fitted with the EH engine, so that was a 545cc two-cylinder water-cooled buzzy little thing, which, as you'll see on test, really does fly, well, once you put your foot down. It's only 28 horsepower, but honestly, it is so much faster than you think it's going to be. I personally was very surprised. Funnily enough though, the Acty was sold in Australia for a brief period of time, but it was the engine which halted sales down under, because Honda were really concerned about this engine and they actually thought it was underpowered for hillier terrains across the rest of Australia. So they only sold it for a very brief period of time. Now I've seen different figures for this. Some people say it was only sold for 1 year and some people say it was for a period of 4 years. Hopefully somebody in the comment section will be able to clear that up for me. As you might have been expecting, it is a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and the model we've got today is the two-door pickup truck, which is what you would have got at launch. Now, if you've ever seen the 5-door vans, they were introduced 2 years after launch in 1979. It's also worth noting the model we're testing here today is the much lesser spotted first generation. They were made from 77 through to 88. However, we know this is an early one before we look at the number plate because it's a pre-1982 facelift. They did various different things. They changed the lights to make it look a bit more wraparound, and this one retains the first generation pre-facelift front end styling. I know as well throughout the 80s, I've not really talked about it much, they did bring in a higher end model of these, which I think was called the Honda Street. Now, as you've probably spotted already, this is a pretty petite little workhorse. So size-wise, she's just over 133 inches long, 58 inches wide, and has a height of just over 68 inches, making her a lot smaller than her competitors like the Bedford Rascal and the Suzuki Super Carry. However, it hasn't stopped people turning these in to little motorhomes, but I'm really not sure where you'd fit all the space in. However, despite being pint-sized and only running that 545cc engine, she can carry up to 772 pounds of load, which is pretty good going and makes it incredibly practical, although I imagine at full load the cruising speed on this would be utterly ridiculous. Although it's always taken with a large pinch of salt, I did run the Acty through howmanyleft.com, and the website is showing less than 100 licensed for road use. So even if we're being pretty liberal with those figures, it would seem the days of the average small goods seller running one of these for their business is, well, definitely long gone. Now, I quite often mention when cars have been in films or television, so I thought I'd also give a nod to the Acty's acting career. Because if you're of a certain age, you might be getting flashbacks to the late great comic Rick Mayall and the Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door series. And if you're slightly younger, the friendly faces of Sooty and Sweep and the Sootymobile, which was in fact rumoured to be the first Honda Acty imported into the UK. So that's a little about this fantastic vehicle and her history. So let's pop inside and I'll talk you through that dash layout.
They say that good things come in small packages, and the Honda Acty, which is short for action by the way, proves that right, because this is a little tiny vehicle that packs a lot of potential inside. It of course came in that era where Japanese taxation classes were changing, and it meant that things that were this small were kind of a bit of a necessity. But of course, when manufacturers were making things like this and it came up against other things like the Super Carry, the Rascal, they had to think about how to use the space effectively. And so that's affected everything from what we've got inside through to how you're sitting when you're driving the car and operating the pedals. So I'm going to show you that as well. So first of all, the biggest surprise for me was the glove box. I wasn't even sure if it was going to have one, but the one that it's got is pretty substantial. And in fact, you can see inside there that we've got the tissue box, and it's around about a third of the size of the dash. So you can keep all your paperwork, all your essentials in there. So it means that the space inside and the space next to you is relatively uncluttered. The top of that dash as well is quite deep. So I mean, you could probably get your bag on there, you could get a few bits on there. The space has actually been very thoughtfully used. Now, it's very simple, as you could probably guess, because this wasn't a vehicle that was made so that people could go on great holidays or use the family vehicle. It was essentially a functional vehicle, and in this country it was used by people like bakeries, it was used by florists, and it was very, very popular. So popular in fact that if you'll remember if you're a certain age, there was a high street store called MFI, and they used to hire them out actually, so that if you'd bought stuff you could get it home and take it back. A different era before IKEA for anyone who's too young to remember. Now, stopping my waffling for 1 second and bringing you back into the centre of the dash, we have got a cigar lighter, we've got a cassette player. Now, I'm not sure if that is an optional extra, but with the age of the vehicle and the fact that it's quite functional, I think it probably was an optional extra. We come through into the choke. A quick admission, this isn't running quite right without the choke fully pushed in. So when you see the video today and you do see that choke slightly out, it's not me being a terrible driver. It is literally that it needs it out, because otherwise it's a bit splattery. Now coming down, we've got our heater controls, and as well as that, because remember these were sold in Japan where the climate is sometimes a lot warmer than ours, they've also got fresh air vents down by your feet. So very well thought out, and it's just a little touch there that adds something to the vehicle. Coming in front of us, everything is very simple and straightforward. Now, the one thing that I don't like about this car is the wipers. Now, I'm going to demonstrate those when we go out. But there are 2-speed wiper and wash, of course, and they are so geriatric. They are like, even on the top speed, in my opinion, they should be better. Now we've got 2 dials in front of us. The one to the left has got fuel and temperature, and the one to the right has got our speedo. It goes up to a rather ambitious 75 miles an hour, but I've had this up to 50 already, and I wouldn't want to push it much further. So I think that's for that's for people that like to live on the edge, which is not me today. In the middle of those, you've got some warning lights. Just as you'd expect. In front of that, we've got our hazard warning switch, and over to the right is a dual purpose stalk. So it's got the lights on there, and it's also got the indicators, and that's kind of it in a nutshell as to what we've got. I'm going to quickly demo the horn for you because it's quite cheeky, as you'd probably expect. I quite like that. Before we go for a drive, I should probably tell you actually that this is a 4-speed. So I think they did 4-speed, 5-speed, and the 3-speed Honda-matic. So we've just got the bog standard 4-speed in this. But when we go for a drive, you'll kind of see that the 5th gear would be nice, but it's not essential because it buzzes at all speeds. But you'll see what I mean in just a moment. Let's get her started up because I want you to hear her. I bet you lot can't wait for me to start up this little 545cc engine. Give it a whirl. What am I doing with my life? Go on, if you wrong uns that like to watch it from the back, we'll go and shoot the back as well. we're going to set off. This is ridiculous. We're going to go up through the 4 gears. This is both utterly ridiculous and wonderful, and it's one of those vehicles that I'm really enjoying because it's so different to anything else that we've really taken out in quite some time. I mean, I will be honest with you, I'm a bit terrified because you can see my hand on the steering wheel like this, because the wind is coming across at such a speed and with such force that it's actually pushing me off the road. God, I tell you what, I wouldn't like to take this over a high bridge. Now, when we talk about the Acty, it's worth talking about the life that she was designed for. So, whilst we're driving it around the roads of Great Britain today, and they're hilly, and we're taking these ridiculous little country roads, when it was designed to be driven around the streets of Tokyo. Now, I've never been to Tokyo myself, but allegedly the driving experience is even more chaotic than that of central Paris and central London combined. So they needed vehicles which were of course small, pretty nippy, but overall it didn't need some massive hulking great engine and body to do what it needed to do, because of course it needed to be nimble, it needed to be agile, and it needed to of course sit under that regulation. Now, as you can see, even if we've come over the brow of this hill, little Acty has got some real get up and go. And I think one of the things that make it so nice to drive is that even though that position is really odd, the way that your feet are on the pedals, instead of your leg being extended, it's as though you're sitting in a dining chair, you soon get your head around it. It's not actually that difficult. I do keep feeling like I'm stamping my foot down to the floor though. Now, you probably noticed on the walkabout when we were having a little look and we were looking in the back, that the way, because obviously it's a mid-engine vehicle, the inspection area to get to that engine, it's got like a cover and it's bolted down, and you know what, for me that is so off-putting, because you just think about all the times that you pop your bonnet. Now imagine having to do that in this, where it's, oh, not only do I have to pull the cover up, I then have to unbolt the panel, and to be honest, for me, it's just too much. So when I was doing reading on these before I came out for a drive, everybody said, oh, it's really buzzy and it's really noisy. And it has got a bit like, I don't know if you can hear it at home, it's like, like a giant angry swarm of bees sitting under the seat. It's like, it's very buzzy, but in its own way it's quite charming. I don't mind it so much, but you know, my tolerance threshold is probably very different to someone who drives a modern car. Whilst I've got the opportunity to show you, I'm going to show you these wipers, because apart from that engine, they're one of the most off-putting things. So you can see they are absolutely dreadful. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with these. I think they are actually that terrible from new. But look, I'm searching for criticisms in a vehicle that has bucket loads of character. For me, this era of vehicles, this is when my interest really starts to wane. But actually, I find this incredibly interesting. I think it's innovative, it tackled a problem well, it's nice to drive, it is so light to drive. It's very responsive. Look, as we come around this corner, I'm not having to really yank that steering wheel round. And even though it's got those high sides, it doesn't feel like it's about to tip over. It all feels relatively well balanced. Anyway, I'm chatting away to you and I must get home. So wherever you are in the world, I hope it's as sunny as it is here today. And until next time, take care and drive safely.